Good afternoon to you. This is Yolanda Lewis with the Simply Irresistible broadcast. We're doing a little bit different today because we have a special guest. So we're going to do it different, but it's still going to be just as amazing, just as fun, and just as impactful as it is all the other times. So before we get into our guest, I want to just take a minute to let you know what we're doing. We are doing a whole series this month on branding for authors because it's so important that as you are developing as an author, you are very clear and very concise with how to present your brand and then also how to manage it going forward. So who better to ask than a professional branding photographer, right? So that's who we have with us here today. I'm going to bring her on in just a moment. If you have not already, go ahead and give me those rockets as you're coming in because I want to see you so that we can chat together like we always do, okay? So I'm going to bring on Jessie. Jessie, here we go. Let's see. Oh, we're going to add. And then it's both of us. Hold on, let's do it this way and then this way and like this. There we go. All right, so welcome, Jessie. We have Jessie Wyman of Jessie Wyman Photography. She's located in Boston. I'm going to let her introduce herself. But first, welcome, Jessie. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks. I'm so excited. I'm really thrilled to be here with you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to have you for sure. So let's jump right in. How did you get started into photography? Like what made you get into that?
It's so fun. I feel like my path is very similar to other photographers where it started off as a hobby. So I had a full-time job. My background is in urban planning, which is totally different than photography. Started doing it on the side. Eventually people wanted to pay me, which is great.
Right.
And I was in the families and the weddings and, the portrait work. I tried everything. Dogs, seniors, newborns, families. Ultimately, I landed on brand photography because I did a mini session event. I said, I want to try this thing called branding photography. Landed on that, fell in love, said, you know what, I want to do this instead of all the other things, and made the transition. And that's what I've been doing for the last few years is strictly brand photography. So I work with service-based entrepreneurs and also some product-based entrepreneurs. And that's really where I specialize and hone in on my zone of genius.
I love it. I love it. You definitely are a genius. So we're honored to have you here. So I want to get right into the thick of things and go ahead and start with kind of what we've been talking about in the group. We've been talking about branding photography, and sometimes folks can't afford, although I recommend it. So I'm also a publisher. So I see branding mishaps on the author side with regard to presentation. On the book, at the initial book, your headshot on that back cover or even on the front cover is usually people try to use cell phone selfie kind of images and all that. And while there are ways that you can use your phone to help to maximize your brand and getting that message out, there's a certain, I think, toolkit that you probably want to consider when you're looking to build out your brand. So I'd love for you to share with our authors kind of what they can do to prep for that brand photo shoot, because it's a little bit different than just a regular photo shoot or a fashion photo shoot and all of that. So what are some of the things that authors can do to prepare for that brand photo shoot?
Yeah, that is like a huge question. And I think first and foremost, and this is a little bit broader discussion, and I think you need to dig a little bit deeper into your business toolkit. But my number one thing is to really understand like who your audience is and what your messaging is. If you have that nailed down, it will not only help your photographer with like, okay, all the other details of the shoot, but it'll make everything go just a lot more seamless, and you'll have a better end result. So if you know your message, if you know your audience, the photographer can take that information and say, okay, these are the types of images we need that are going to best reflect your brand, your message, and resonate with that audience. So that's like first and foremost. And I know that's really sort of a deeper
no, that's perfect.
Exercise.
Oh yeah, no, that's perfect. That's where we go in the intentional entrepreneur group as author bosses. We go all the way in because I want everyone to have what they need to be able to go to the next level in their entrepreneurship. So you hit it right on the nail. Know that audience. That's super key. Because when you know that audience and that, I should say, know your message. Know your message, because when you know your message, then you'll know your audience, and you can have the photo shoot informed from there. So I love that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would say that is like number one. A lot of my clients come to me and they have an idea. And even if you just have an idea to start with, we can flesh that out. It's better if you've worked with someone to identify that, or if you know what that is. But then from there, there's a lot of other details that go into the shoot. So there's things like simply planning your wardrobe and your hair and makeup.
Oh, yeah.
So if I had to say, some people always ask me, is it worth getting your hair and makeup done? Mm-hmm. If you're making the investment, if you're spending a couple $1,000 or $1,000 or $500, the last thing you want to do is cheap out on the final look.
Right.
So with hair and makeup, it helps in a few ways. So I know a lot of us aren't used to wearing heavy makeup day to day. That's, we're not putting on especially when we're in a pandemic, we're not putting on the lashes, we're not doing the thing. Mm-hmm. But for a photo shoot, the camera will pick up those fine details and it'll just make you pop. Your hair as well, if everything's in place, it will just make everything look better in the photos and save time in retouching, so we don't have to worry about that. So when it comes to thinking about the overall investment, you definitely want to consider the shoot itself, but then think about a few other things that you can do to really go that extra step. Some photographers will include it into their packages, and if you are going to a photographer and reaching out to them, I would suggest asking that question. If they include it, great. If not, ask for recommendations.
Right. And what about for guys, right? So we know, like, guys are not necessarily going to wear lashes necessarily. There are some guys who get into that, but necessarily they're not going to wear the lashes. So what can guys do to prep for that photo shoot with regard to hair and makeup? Because they do need to do something too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my husband always says his beard is his man makeup.
Yeah.
So if there's any kind of facial hair, you want to make sure that it's looking nice and tidy. Mm-hmm. Whether or not maybe you have a big beard, that's totally fine. Yeah. Just make sure it's cleaned up, not looking overly scraggly. I would say that that's probably the best you can do. Same with the haircut, right? So with men, that's what it is. Make up your hair and your facial hair. So make sure that you're cleaned up. What I generally tell my clients as well is don't do anything too extreme right before the shoot. So if you want to try something different, like my haircut went from really long to pretty much nothing, I would not recommend doing that right before your shoot. But doing a nice cleanup a few days before.
Okay. Now, should guys wear makeup?
So my typical client is a female.
Yep.
So I don't work with a lot of men. Men can wear makeup. Yeah. If they're concerned about their skin and if that makes them anxious, I highly recommend consulting with a makeup artist to see if that would be worth it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because, we had a question in the group, as you know, about like what to do with your hands during that photo shoot, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I think it's important to highlight for the guys as well, because in the intentional entrepreneur group, there are men as, it's male and female. And I think it's important for them to know makeup won't make you girly. It's just if you wear it for the photo shoot to blend your skin, to like make that editing, the touching that you guys do afterwards a little bit easier, a little bit smoother, so they don't look. One of the things that I can't stand is that almost like you look so edited that you don't even look real anymore. So you don't want to make your blending that intense to where you look like almost a cartoon caricature, because it's just not natural. So that makeup, even for men, helps to blend out, some of those natural blotches we have in the skin, so that in the editing room where you guys live, and from that lens, it gives that clean, crisp shot still.
Yes, and some people know their bodies well enough than others, but if you know also your skin gets really oily and it's shiny, that might be also a case where I would say, you know what, let's bring in a makeup artist. Maybe you don't need the whole thing. It may not be as like a full investment as like a female makeup application, but let's see if that will help, because that does sometimes detract from the photo if there's too much shine.
Right. I love it. So let's talk about clothes and clothes. in the photos. So a lot of times women, we're sensitive about the muffin area, right? I'll just call it that.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that authors can use, or tips that they can use to kind of make sure that their shape that is, in certain positions, right? So you might have to sit up a little. It will feel uncomfortable, but in the picture, it will look perfect. So, what are some of the tips to make sure that our clothes cover the right spot, and also, our positioning also covers the right spot as well when we're in that photo shoot?
Right. So I always talk about layering too with clothing. Sometimes adding another layer will help, let's say, hide our conscious areas.
Right.
So you can do that with having a blazer under a nice blouse. But I do always tell my clients, you don't want to go overly poofy with your clothes either. You want something that's going to fit you, not make you look like a balloon that's not going to hug anything. You do want a little bit of a shape. So if you have clothes that are too baggy, it's not going to do you a service in that particular realm. If there is an area that you're concerned about, any sort of muffin situation going on, layering will always help. And then, yes, you're right. You know it. You should is like one thing that can save so many situations where there are concerns like that. So yes, like the sitting up. So with my clients that are concerned about that, or if I can tell, so a lot of it is like reading body language of my clients, because sometimes they're not going to outwardly tell me like, oh, I'm concerned about this.
Yeah.
I can sometimes tell.
Yeah.
So there's certain ways that I won't even put them in a certain position.
Right.
But yes, sitting up straighter. If one particular outfit looks like it's going to be a little bit more snug, I might not have them sitting as much. I might have them standing.
Mm-hmm.
What I always tell clients is when you are standing, to tighten your core as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let's give those abs a little bit of a workout, but you don't want to seem stiff. Right. So when you're doing that, you want to bend a limb of some sort. So if you think about like your leg, maybe put a little bit more weight on one leg or the other, but still tighten your core in. Mm-hmm. That will help a lot.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I like that. So to your point, I remember my first photo shoot, and I was so nervous with my first photo shoot because before my first photo shoot, I was not a makeup person at all. I'm still not really a makeup person, but with a photo shoot, you got to wear way more makeup than you would normally anyways. So if you're not a makeup person and then you're doing a photo shoot and you have to wear like triple the makeup that you would normally wear, it makes you feel some kind of way. Like I feel like I have guck on my face. When you look in the mirror, it looks beautiful. And then when you look at the photography, I remember looking at how much makeup was on my face. But the photo shoot, everything blended so nice. Like I barely even had makeup on. So I was familiar with that. I was also very self-conscious about my body. I didn't have a lot of muffin top going on, but I was still insecure about it at the time. Now I have plenty of muffin top to hand out to like a whole class of kids, right? But but then I didn't have all of that yet. I was still a little bit insecure about how that would show up on the camera. So it's important that your photographer, which is why I wanted to have you here to have the voice of the photographer. It's important that your photographer know how to position you without embarrassing you, or making you feel even more uncomfortable, to accentuate the good parts, the good view of your body, because you do sometimes in your branding, in your flyers, in your website, you might want a full shot or even a quarter length shot of yourself because of the image that you want to present. And so it's important that your photographer know how to help you to accentuate that. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I wanted to just share my little piece of story with the audience so that they knew that I don't just know this stuff because I like woke up one day and was like, I know this stuff. I actually went through those points where I did bad photo shoots. And then I invested, but it just came out poorly because you could see my confidence wasn't there, or you could see I didn't know what I wanted out of the photo shoot. You could tell that as well. So I love all the tips that you're sharing. They're right on to what I believe that authors need to make sure that their brand is presented well and strong. And so I thank you for sharing that. I want you to talk to us about the importance of / the difference between a brand photo shoot and a regular photo shoot, whatever regular would mean, but a brand photo shoot and an other photo shoot. Tell us about the difference.
That's a great question. So I sat upon this for a little bit. I know that you gave me a little bit of a hint of what you were going to ask me, but what's interesting is I've pretty much done both. So remember, I started with weddings and families and the dogs and the seniors, and then I switched to branding, and there is a huge difference. So a few of the things that I've learned over the time is with branding photography, it's commercial, right? We want these images to ultimately make you money, right? That's like your goal. Nobody comes into the photo session and be like, I can't wait to take pictures. Like, no. Okay, maybe like one or two people, maybe if you're an influencer or a blogger and you're used to it. 90% of my clients are like, I need this because I need to grow my audience. I need this because I need to sell a product. I need this. And why do they need that? Because they want to make money, right? So that's like the biggest difference. They're coming to me with like this very strong need, and we're solving a problem. We need to solve our audience problem. So how are we going to do that? We're going to create imagery that shows how to solve that problem, or a way that they can connect with you and learn to trust you that, hey, this person can solve this problem. Because sometimes it's not like overly obvious of what they do. A lot of the entrepreneurs I work with are mainly online. It's like, how do I show what I do? I work on my computer all day. Okay, well, yeah, we can show that, but there's other ways to pull out your process and the way you provide your service, or maybe the problem you're solving in your book, and bring that to life. Take it out of the computer, take it out of the digital world, and pull it together so that people start to understand what it is you do. But then there's also the more lifestyle images within brand photography that get people to like you. With like families and dogs and weddings, it's more about the emotion that they're tying to, the memory. And is this photo going to look good in an album? Is this photo going to look good on my wall? I want to make sure I have an image of me currently in my life that my kids can remember me by. It's more emotional based. There's not as much involved with prep work. I don't need to know what problem they're solving. I mean, they're solving a memory problem. It's totally different. But then also with brand photography, the photographer needs to think about what type of content you're coming up with in maybe the next 6 months to a year, so that they can make sure they're getting images that are going to like match that content. So if you know you have certain blog posts coming up, if you know you have a launch, a book signing, this, you can create images that can be used for those launches in your brand shoot. So those are the types of questions we would ask for a brand shoot versus another type of photo shoot. And with that, the actual composition, physical composition, are we leaving negative space, graphics, are we composing using the rule of thirds, like getting that negative space, composing in a way that is a great Instagram prop, things like that. We're asking about aspect ratios. Where are you going to use it? So I would say those are sort of the big key ones in terms of the difference of brand photography and something else.
I love it. You killed it. You killed it, and I love the way that you explained it. So simple. I think that maybe one of the things that we can do as a follow-up is provide some type of, I think you have this on your site, but some type of questionnaire that they could use, or checklist that they can have to say, all right, when I'm getting ready to do my next brand shoot, what do I need to focus on? All right, what focus book launch, or focus coaching program, or focus, event, live experience event, that way they can organize what they need to have ready in terms of that preparation, ready for their brand shoot. I love that. That's super dope. Super dope. And I love it because it's going to help our authors really become bosses. Or I should go this way. Bosses. Somewhere over here. Author boss. There we go. Okay, and so my last question is mistakes. I know that with your experience, you have seen, especially with being on both sides of the world, of both worlds of photography. I want you to talk to us about some of the mistakes that authors or coaches even, because a lot of times authors are coaches. They're not necessarily just fiction authors or novelists, but they're actually coaches and speakers. And what are some of the mistakes that you've seen them make? Maybe 3. And then what are some of the things that they can do to avoid, our new audience can avoid those mistakes going forward?
Yeah, so one of the big mistakes I think a lot of people going out and getting brand photography, and this applies to authors as well, is selecting, and you touched upon this in one of your recent videos, is location.
Yeah.
I can't stress this enough. I once had a client, wasn't an author, but you'll laugh at this story. I once had a client come to me and she's like, I need a new headshot for my website. My website sucks. Please help. Like, her subject was literally like, please help me. Go to her website. She was a nurse who has a PhD and provides high-level nursing concierge service.
Wow.
And the banner image was her in her scrubs in a park in Boston, sitting on her laptop on a random wall.
Wow.
I was like, what is going on here? I'm so confused by this image. Like,
yes.
I mean, so some people might think, well, what's wrong with that? So the reason it was so out of place is you really would never see a nurse in her scrubs on her laptop in the park, maybe if she was on lunch, but really that's not the message you want to send as a high-end personal nursing concierge.
Right.
So you want to think back to your message. What type of message are you wanting to send? Does your location match that? And I know some people just go to the outdoor location because it's simple, it's easy, don't have to pay for it. Right. But again, thinking back to that investment, if you're going to be spending X amount of dollars on your shoot with a photographer, it might be worth the extra $200-$300 to rent a gorgeous space that will really give that extra pop to your images. Right. When you're working with a photographer, ask if they have a studio. If not, do they have a list of locations to rent? I always work with my clients to find a location that's going to make sense for them. If their brand is bright and bold, and if their audience is kind of like wild and, you know, free, and if they're a coach and they're trying to empower people, and it's just a very bold and vibrant, empowering brand, maybe some bright colored walls is what we want. Maybe we don't want to be, you know, in a light and airy space. Maybe we want a little bit more pop of color. So things like that to think about. Location can go wrong a lot of the time.
Yeah. I love that, and it's so true. I know even for me, I've done such bad job at the location. That's why I added that to the list in that video, because I stunk at that. And the reason I stunk at that is because it wasn't necessarily because I didn't know my message. It was more so because I wasn't comfortable. It was all about me. I was not comfortable with saying, you know what, my personality is big. My personality is vibrant. It's not necessarily loud, but it is out there, but it's also warm. And so it's also inviting. So where do you take that photo? You know, I had to play around with this. So I said, I don't know where. So I'll play with the colors then that I'm wearing. And so I played with the colors, but then picked the wrong setting. And so that'll mess you up as well in terms of the image that you want to portray. So I loved that you shared that as a huge mistake. Is there any other mistake before we close this thing out? Is there any other mistake that you can think of? Yes.
So I would say, I had a note here, making sure you get a variety of shots. So you can go into this, and if you get like just a bunch of headshots with you looking at the camera, that's great, but that's not going to give you the content you need. Going back to that previous comment I made about what type of content do you have planned in the future, so I always tell my clients, like 4 shot type. We've got the headshot, the camera, we've got the action or candid where they're actually doing something or looking away. I know you touched upon that. Great job. You should just take my job. Looking away, you know, the ones that are or working on your laptop or writing your book or writing notes or signing your book, those types of shots. Then you want some detail shots that aren't necessarily even of you, because you don't necessarily need to put your face on every single post that you do. So it's like the flat lays that you see, but they're branded. They've got your colors and like your feel and the this, and it's not necessarily of you, because you're going to need that type of visual content to also help market those camera graphics, those types of things. And then the like process. So if you have a certain way that you work, let's show that. Let's pull that out from the digital world into the physical world, and then put it in an image in the digital world.
Right. I love it. I love it. No, that's helpful because with those shots, a lot of times authors think they only need a headshot. Like, let me go get a headshot really quick and I'll use that everywhere. Eek! No, you don't want to do that. You want to have, when you're looking at your brand shoot, you want to have that variety that you're talking about. So what happens then is your brand has a little longevity, like it's carried for some time. And we talked, you and I chatted about rebranding, right? So even after you do this, sometimes you change. And you want to have that fresh, updated look. So talk to us about rebranding real quick, and then we're all done.
Yeah, no problem. So yes, rebranding. Anytime you rebrand, it's like a process, right? We got the colors and the this, and you cut your hair like I did, and but yes, anytime you have a major change in your brand, you should get updated photos, because if your color scheme changes and your website is all different and the colors might not match, but also it's a super great time to actually do it. Even if, like, I think you should, but also it just makes everything easier if you're working with a web designer, if you're working with a social media manager, it's just going to make things easier. My dog just like barreled into the room. Sorry, he like slapped his ears. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is some photographers offer like multiple shoots throughout the year. So if you think about your overall marketing plan, start thinking of photography as part of that.
I love that.
So you can maybe not, so instead of doing like one long day, like if that really like overwhelms you, ask your photographer if you can do maybe like 3-hour shoots every quarter, right, or 4-hour shoots every quarter. That way also, if you like love fall and you love like the spring, you can actually like coordinate your looks that way, and you just have content. It's just part of your marketing strategy. You constantly have content. It's getting updated, and if anything does change, you already got that shoot planned, so perfect time. Don't have to worry about it.
Oh, I love that. That's good. That's good. I'm actually going to emulate that. I never thought about, I just book it it's like, oh, I need it, let's do it. But I think to have that outward look of, because I like the clothes of fall. I like the colors of fall, because again, that part of my brand that's warm, those fall colors really help to bring that out. Yeah. So to schedule that out, I already know that about myself. To schedule that out in advance is probably a really, really good idea. So I love that.
And to that point, there's a stylist, wardrobe stylist I work here in Boston. She's great. And actually, she made a really good point about that. If you know certain colors look better on you, or if you know you're a fall person, and you know you only want to do one shoot, wait until the fall. Like if that works out, wait until it's the clothes that you're comfortable wearing. If you're more of a summer girl and you want a summer dress, or a guy and you know you don't want to be wearing that heavy sweater or the jacket, you want a little bit lighter of a look, season that you are most comfortable in, provided it lines up with all your other marketing plans.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, that's so good. You gave us some good goodies. If folks want to get in contact with you or follow you for more information, where can they find you?
I am very active on Instagram, so they can find me at Jessie Wyman Photos, Instagram. My website is just jessiewymanphotography.com. I'm happy to answer any other questions. I do like the idea of creating a checklist. I don't have one yet, but maybe this will prompt me to give to your members.
Yes, let's do that. Let's do that. I would love that. And we'll send it out through our email blast. So if you're not subscribed with our email, make sure that you drop your email below so that we can get to you the checklist that Jessie and I are going to put together. And we have some other things coming up too, brewing in the pot. So make sure you stay connected. Jessie's located in Boston, so if you're in the Boston area, you definitely want to contact her for photography. And if you want to fly her in, contact her as well and book her so she can come to you and work in your city. I'm sure she'd love that as well. That would be really cool. Get Jessie in the blue skies.
I know, right? Yes, get me out of the city.
Yeah, and maybe even into some warmer weather. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad we were able to chat and share all these good information about author branding that authors need to make sure that they are being intentional about their brand and taking it to the next level. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you again real soon. You already know. And Jessie, thank you so much for being a part.
You're so welcome. Thank you, everyone. Hope this was helpful.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.